Ever think about all the chatter going on behind the scenes between your apps?
It's like a hidden world, isn't it? Making sure everything runs smoothly.
Like a giant networking event, but for apps. But instead of awkward small talk, it's all business.
Right. And as our apps get more complex and chatty, they need better ways to communicate.
Makes sense. Enter gRPC. I mean, it sounds like some kind of sci-fi tech, but really it's just about helping different apps or even parts of the same app talk to each other.
Yeah, gRPC is all about smooth and efficient communication, especially in the world of microservices where you've got all these smaller independent services.
Okay, microservices, right. We've talked about those before. So it's like each little service needs its own phone line.
Exactly. And gRPC makes sure those calls go through crystal clear.
But what's the secret sauce? What makes gRPC so special?
Well, one of the key ingredients is something called protocol buffers. It's like a universal language all these services can understand, no matter what programming language they're actually written in.
Ah, so like a universal translator for apps?
Precisely. And this makes things much smoother. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine an online retail app.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You've got a service, let's call it product info, that holds all the juicy details about each product.
So when I'm browsing and click on a pair of shoes,
Yeah.
product info is what fetches all those details about the shoes,
Yeah.
the size, color, price, and all that.
You got it. Now, let's say this product info service is written in, let's say, Go.
Go, the language. Okay.
Right. But the part of the app requesting that info, the client, is written in Java.
Hold on. Different languages. Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be a problem? Like trying to order a pizza in Italian when you only speak Spanish?
You'd think so, right? But that's where gRPC really shines. Thanks to protocol buffers, the Go service and the Java client can understand each other perfectly.
That's pretty impressive. So how does the actual communication happen? Is it like sending emails back and forth?
Not quite. gRPC is way more modern and efficient. It uses HTTP2. Think of it as a superhighway for data.
Okay, so we've got protocol buffers as the common language, and this HTTP2 superhighway. But how does gRPC actually organize the conversation?
Good question. gRPC uses something called a contract. It's like a blueprint that lays out how the client and server will interact.
So like setting ground rules, making sure everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. This contract specifies what kind of info can be requested and what the responses will look like. No surprises.
So it's like a well-defined menu. You know what you can order and what to expect.
Yeah. And this contract is used to generate code both on the server side, the product info service in our example, and on the client side, the part of the app requesting those shoe details. This generated code kind of acts like an interpreter, handling all the communication details behind the scenes.
So it's like having a personal assistant on both sides, making sure the message gets through loud and clear.
Right. And this makes things much easier for developers. They don't have to worry about all the nitty-gritty details of network communication.
Okay, I'm starting to get the big picture, but let's zoom in a bit. What's actually happening under the hood?
All right, let's break it down. On the server side, you've got that product info service just waiting for requests from clients.
Like a shopkeeper ready to help customers.
Exactly. When a client wants info about a product, they send a request to the server using their generated client load.
And how does that request get packaged up?
That's where protocol buffers come back in. They neatly bundle everything up.
Got it. And then it gets in, zooming down that HTTP2 superhighway.
You got it. On the server side, the product info service receives this request, unpacks it, and uses its logic to fetch those shoe details.
Okay, so far so good.
Then it packages that info back up again using protocol buffers and sends it back to the client.
And voila, the client gets all the details about those size 9 blue shoes they were looking for. It's like magic, but, you know, the tech kind of magic.
Exactly. gRPC is the magician behind the curtain, making sure the whole process runs smoothly and efficiently.
Well, it's definitely a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. It's like a whole ecosystem of communication happening behind the scenes.
It is, and it's all thanks to gRPC that our apps can talk to each other so effectively.
But gRPC hasn't always been around, right? How did we even get to this point? What came before gRPC?
Well, before gRPC, we had things like RPC, Remote Procedure Call.
RPC rings a bell. Vaguely.
Yeah, they were like the first attempts at getting apps to talk to each other, but they were, how can I put it? Kind of a headache to work with.
So like trying to use a rotary phone in the age of smartphones?
Pretty much, gRPC is a much more modern approach, especially for cloud-native apps where things are spread out across multiple servers.
Okay, so gRPC is basically RPC, but way down suited for today's world.
Exactly. It brings a whole bunch of advantages to the table.
Like what? Give me the highlights.
Well, for starters, it's super efficient. gRPC uses those protocol buffers we talked about, and they're much smaller and faster to process compared to like JSON or XML.
Ah, yeah, those old data formats, like trying to send a file through dial-up.
Exactly. gRPC is like lightning fast, makes for a snappier user experience.
Speed is key these days.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to wait around for things to load.
Right. And this efficiency is especially crucial in those microservices setups where you have tons of services constantly chatting.
Yeah, any lag there, and a whole app could grind to a halt. Like rush hour traffic, but for data.
Perfect analogy. But speed isn't the only thing. What about security?
Ah, good point. Can't forget about security.
Right. And gRPC has you covered there too. It's got built-in support for things like authentication and encryption.
So it's like having a bodyguard for your app's conversation.
Exactly. It helps keep those prying eyes out.
Can you elaborate on the security features a bit? How do they actually work?
Sure. gRPC can use things like SSL/TLS certificates or token-based authentication to verify that both the client and server are legit.
So like checking IDs at the door, making sure no party crashers.
Precisely. And once the identities are verified, gRPC can encrypt the whole communication channel using TLS.
So even if someone snuck a peek, they wouldn't be able to understand anything.
Right. It'd be like trying to read a message written in a secret code.
That's reassuring.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like security is baked right into gRPC.
It is. And that's one reason why big companies like Google and Netflix use gRPC for their critical services.
Speaking of those big players, I'm curious to hear more about real-world use cases. You mentioned Netflix. What are they doing with gRPC?
Well, they use it to manage a ton of communication between all their different microservices. Think about all the things the Netflix app does. Recommendations, search, playback control, user profiles.
It's a lot more than just pressing play.
Right. Each of those features is likely powered by a separate microservice, and gRPC makes sure they all work together seamlessly.
So when I'm binge-watching a show, it's gRPC that's keeping the data flowing.
You got it. It's essential for providing a smooth experience for millions of users.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Something as simple as watching a show involves this whole network of services talking to each other.
It does, and it shows how important communication is for modern apps. But we've talked about efficiency and security. What about scalability? Can gRPC handle growth?
That's a good question. Apps are constantly evolving and growing.
And gRPC is built for that. It can handle tons of requests and distribute them efficiently across multiple servers. No sweat.
So it's like having a communication system that can expand as your app grows.
Exactly. This is crucial for companies like Google that operate at massive scale.
So they're using gRPC to keep all their services in sync.
You bet. It's a key part of their infrastructure.
So gRPC is efficient, secure, scalable. Anything else? What about us developers?
Ah, yes. Can't forget about the developers. gRPC makes our lives easier, too. Remember that contract, the blueprint.
Yeah, the one that defines how everything talks to each other.
Right. Well, gRPC uses that contract to automatically generate code for both the client and the server.
So less work for us.
Exactly. We don't have to write all that boring boilerplate code for network communication and data stuff. We can focus on the fun stuff, the logic of the app.
It's like having a robot do all the tedious paperwork.
I like that. And this code generation doesn't just save time, it also helps prevent errors.
Makes sense? The code is based on that well-defined contract, so there's less room for mistakes.
Right. So gRPC isn't just efficient, secure, and scalable. It's also developer-friendly.
Sounds like a win-win all around. But with all this talk about efficiency and speed, is there anything gRPC isn't good for?
Well, like any technology, it has its trade-offs. gRPC is really good for those structured request-response type interactions. But if you need something more flexible, like real-time chat or streaming, there might be better options out there.
Ah, so it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Makes sense. But it sounds like for a lot of modern apps, gRPC is the way to go.
It is, and as more and more companies move towards microservices and the cloud, I think we'll see gRPC become even more popular.
Well, I have to say, I'm impressed. gRPC is way more interesting than I initially thought. I used to think of it as just some obscure technical thing.
I get that. But it's
Well,
actually pretty fundamental to how a lot of things work these days. It's the glue that holds a lot of modern applications together.
And it's only going to get more important in the future. Speaking of the future, any final thoughts on where gRPC might be headed? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about all those conversations happening behind the scenes, all those apps constantly chattering away just like us.
It's like they have their own little society going on. Trading information, making deals, getting things done.
Right? And we just go about our day oblivious to all the hard work gRPC is doing.
Like a well-oiled machine humming along in the background, making our digital lives run smoothly.
That's a great analogy. And, as our apps keep getting more complex, gRPC is going to become even more important. It's the glue that holds everything together.
It makes you wonder what the future holds.
Yeah.
I mean, with gRPC making communication so easy, do you think we'll see even more crazy innovative apps?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're just scratching the surface. With gRPC taking care of all the communication headaches, developers are free to focus on building awesome new features and experiences.
It's exciting to think about. Maybe one day our apps will be so smart and connected they'll practically read our minds.
Huh. Who knows, right? But with gRPC paving the way, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of gRPC. It's been a real eye-opener.
I agree. It's amazing how much we rely on this technology without even realizing it.
And we hope you've enjoyed learning about it as much as we have. If you're hungry for more gRPC knowledge, there are tons of resources online.
Definitely. There are tutorials, articles, open source projects, you name it.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Topictrick for more deep dives into the world of tech. We're always cooking up new episodes.
We love sharing these insights with you, and we hope you'll join us again soon.
And if you enjoyed this episode about gRPC, be sure to share it with your friends. Spread the gRPC love. The more we all understand about these technologies, the better.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.